From the Electric City, Great Falls, Montana, we've got After Hours Ag Podcast, and I've got some guests with me that I'm excited to have on the podcast here. And you know what? They've got some history with them. We've got Ryan Pfeifle and his dad Phil Pfeifle, and then we've got a visitor from Argentina, Nestor Serenelli. So thanks, guys, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're third day of the farm show, and you guys came up and said hi. And I was like, hey, Ryan, we should talk because Ryan's got a fun story. I visited you how many years ago?
Many. We bought some air seeder parts from you.
Yeah.
Must be 5 at least years ago.
Wow, I must have just been getting started. Did I look like I was a rookie? Or come across as that?
You still kind of got a baby face.
Yeah,
so.
I do. That's been quite the comment. I usually help people out and say I'm actually 41 before they get too many ideas. But so I visited Ryan, and he had something very unique on his property, and he showed me all about it. What was that, Ryan?
We built a craft malt house in about 2016. So we take malt barley and turn it into malt that we can sell to breweries and distilleries, kind of on a craft smaller scale than the larger malt houses around the country. So.
Yeah, and that's with your product that you grow, is that right?
Correct, yeah. We grow the barley and we turn it into malt and sell it to breweries and distilleries.
Mm-hmm. And what air seeder did you use to grow that barley?
John Deere 1895.
All right,
with
all right.
Ready parts.
There, I was gonna prime you for that, but thank you for getting that in there. Ready parts, and that's how I got to know Ryan. And I can't remember if Phil, you were there at the time, but you've obviously been a part of this. Tell me a little bit about your journey in this, and maybe how many generation farmer you are, and some things like that.
Well, I guess I'm the only generation that has known the original generation of farmers. My grandparents started farming in 1915. He came to Montana with 3 of his siblings, and my grandfather was the only one that stuck it out through the dry years. And so I'm still farming because of them. My parents continued on. I'm the 3rd generation. And now Ryan is the 4th, and we have some potential 5th generation
excellent
farmers coming up. I've got 4 grandkids.
Not all mine.
Yeah, we've got Ryan has 2 grandkids, and another son has 2 other grandkids.
Okay, so if they're like my kids and my brother's kids, there might be some competition between the cousins.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 of them are similar aged boys, and they.
Did they already talk about it?
Oh, they wrestle. Well, not so much about farming, but
okay.
Basketball or soccer or anything, and
nice.
Who can kick further and who can jump higher, and
yeah,
always.
So how did you get into the malting side of things? Like what caused you to go that direction, Ryan?
My grandfather actually encouraged me to go to university for engineering instead of ag, and I listened to him, and I'm very glad I did. So after university, I got the standard engineering job in the semiconductor field and did that, traveled the world, and through that, I don't know why, but it seems like a lot of engineers homebrew beer. So maybe that was just the industry I was in. But so I just kind of got into home brewing, got into craft beer, but I had a problem. I couldn't take my family's barley and turn it into my homebrew because there's a middle step called malting. So I took a beer keg and built a little malting machine, and that could do about 15 pounds, and kind of just enjoyed the process of making malt, and decided at the same time just like the craft brewers were kind of popping up big at that time, there's a smaller group of people, craft maltsters, that popped up. So there's probably 100 of them around the country. And I just thought that'd be a neat industry to be in, a good value-added type project. And I just so I built a bigger machine that will do about 3,000 pounds, turn 3,000 pounds of barley into malt. So
okay, so you scaled it a little bit.
Yeah, so we've been doing that since like 2016, making malt, and through that, other endeavors keep arising. So
you talked about being an engineer.
Yeah.
Which college did you graduate from?
I know where this is going. Montana State University Bobcats.
Yes.
The number 2 team in the country right now.
Go Bison.
Yeah.
We've had a few of those comments at the show.
For sure.
I sometimes ask, you won't fault me from being from North Dakota, will you?
I'm actually from North Dakota. My parents were born in my mother was born in North Dakota.
Okay, so you got 1 foot in Montana, 1 foot in North Dakota kind of thing.
Yeah, that's claim to fame.
That's right. Well, very cool. You know what? It could have gone either way. That was a great game.
That first quarter killed us.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we'll see what happens next year.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And you talked about traveling the world. Was that through your work?
Yeah, largely for their work. And then also my wonderful wife decided to go get a master's degree, and she wanted to go on an adventure. So Edinburgh, Scotland, she went and got a master's degree, and I followed her there. And my work was nice enough to let me work remotely and kind of shifted my position to Europe from Montana. So we spent a little over a year in Edinburgh, Scotland, traveling. But
okay. That was probably before working remotely was a thing.
It was, I mean, we VPN'd in. It was 2007.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was.
That's amazing.
It was crazy. I guess it was a tech company. They better had it figured out.
That's true. They're ahead of their time.
So, yeah, I did all my CAD design and stuff in a closet in a little flat in Edinburgh, Scotland. So.
And you said that was 2007, and then you went home to farm after that.
Yeah, after we got back from Scotland, I decided it was time to head back to the farm.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What drew you back? I mean, besides like you're coming home, maybe the master's thing was ending. What drew you back?
I guess the engineering was fun and I enjoyed it, but I wasn't made for a desk job. And maybe that was because I got to grow up on the farm and playing on the farm and building things. A shop, the shop was my playground as a kid. We just built things. Mm-hmm. My good friend Jerry here, we would just build whatever we could think of in the farm. So,
okay.
Yeah, it was just time. I mean, wife and I were about time to start having kids, and thought it'd be a great place to have children, of course, as our small community.
Phil, as a dad, were you asking them to come back, or were excited for them to come back? What were you doing?
I was absolutely thrilled.
Great.
I was at the point where I would either have to get smaller or have help. And at the time, Ryan was ready to come back to the farm. It was just that critical time. So he's been a godsend to, and we had a chance to lease some ground at that time. So it made room for Ryan, and with his help and expertise building stuff and farming, he's become quite a good expert farmer.
Good.
And so the farm has grown since he's been back, so it's been great.
And he brought you grandkids.
That's
right. Positive, right?
That's the best part.
Yeah. Well, good. And we have another guest here, which we introduced in the beginning here, Nestor Serenelli. How did you guys get together? Because you all came up together. What is the connection here? Maybe I'll start with Ryan introducing Nestor.
Yeah, Nestor's a friend and business partner of ours. I alluded to earlier about how the malting has evolved into other things. So we've actually built a single malt whiskey distillery too. So, and the way I met Nestor is when I was learning how to make malt. I, of course, wanted to make high quality malt. So I took a class in Winnipeg, Canada. There's a malting school there. And
they have a school for that.
They do, yeah. I wish I could remember. It's got an acronym that I can't recall right now, but CM, anyway. But Nestor had been, and his wife and son had been making single malt whiskey down in Argentina for many years. And his wife, Leela, attended the same class. So they'd already been making whiskey and wanted to get into farming and malting. And I'd been farming and malting, and after meeting them, the idea of getting into whiskey came to mind with their encouragement.
Yeah. Did Nestor, did you come here first to visit Ryan and family, or did Ryan, you go to Argentina?
Yes, this is my first time in Montana, and Ryan also came to Argentina. We are from Patagonia, Argentina, close Los Andes Mountains, and we have a whiskey distillery, and we make our malt since 13 years.
Wow. And is it a hobby or is it a business? Like,
No.
Are you even making money on doing it?
No, it's our job. Yes.
Okay.
It's business.
It's your business. Okay, excellent. And you've been doing it for 13 years. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's the first single malt whiskey in Argentina.
Now, you don't just start a whiskey distillery and start producing product right away, right? It takes how many years?
A minimum for sell the whiskey, 5 years of maturation.
Wow.
Mm.
And you kind of started it and had to wait 5 years for that first product to become available.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Minimum is, by law, 3 years in Argentina. But now we only sell whiskey 8 years old.
Okay. So it's even better.
Even better, yeah.
Because I understand, like the country song, it gets better with time,
Gets
right?
better with age, yes.
Hey, I can gather that.
Yeah, and Nestor has told me before they want to get to at least a minimum of 10 years, so they're working towards that goal, and we'll work to that same goal too. So they just got a bit of a head start on us. So
yep. That means that's a long game approach. You can't just get into this and just be like, I'm going to do this and see if it works out.
Yeah, it's
you
quite
got
the
to be
investment.
planning ahead.
Yeah,
and really long game in it here.
Yeah, if you make a quality product, it'll certainly work out in the long run for you. So
yep.
Yeah.
And your company is called Farm Power Malt, right?
That was the malting, yes.
Okay.
And then the distillery is going to be Farm Alazana, and that ties in with their distillery down in Argentina, La Alazana.
Will you guys be sharing product, or is it just how you do things? It's more of a connection of process and.
It would be really neat to have like a 2-pack of bottles someday. There's lots of laws I have to figure out yet, but if that's not possible, and we're sharing knowledge and sharing kind of a marketing relationship, a southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere sister distillery. So I don't think that's ever happened before, where you have kind of sister distilleries in different continents. So
yeah,
and certainly the sharing the knowledge and the sharing the marketing.
What are you doing to expand, Ryan?
Expand
your malting and your distillery, because that takes space, right? What things do you need to get into distillery, and how much space do you need?
So we had the malting machine I kind of wedged in the back corner of an addition on our shop. But for the distillery, we put up a 50 by 90 building, and eventually that's my goal this winter, is to get that malting machine moved to the new building. So we'll have the malting and distilling all in one location. So.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been quite a project to put up a building and all the infrastructure and get everything up and running, boilers and steam. And
oh, man, and I'm sure it's...
I've learned a lot.
I'm sure you have all that time with your full-time farming.
Well, thankfully I don't have any cows, so
okay.
My winters are not so busy as some of the guys that run cattle all winter. But, so it kind of do the whiskey and malting in the winter, and the farming, of course, in the summer, spring and summer. So
you're in Powers, Montana. I don't know if we covered that, and that's kind of where the Farm Power Malt came from.
Correct.
Where are you marketing the product to? Do you see is it just a local thing, or does it expand beyond that?
We weren't big enough to venture too far away from home, and didn't have any need to. So sold to local breweries around Great Falls and into the Flathead Valley a little bit. Now with our distillery, though, I've kind of cut back on selling to the breweries, because we use about 70% of the malt we can make ourselves now. So
okay,
I still have one brewery that I work with closely. He became a good friend, and he makes really, really good beer. So
okay,
I couldn't not sell to him. But yeah, for the most part, one time we thought about expanding the malting, but the whiskey opportunity came up, and that just was so much more interesting. And
is whiskey a thing in Montana?
It will be.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so we could dive into the nuances of different whiskeys, but single malt is one of the many variations of whiskey, and we all heard of bourbon, but bourbon needs corn in it, and we're not big corn growers here in Montana, so we're only going to make the best possible product we can from what we grow. So, and we make wonderful malt barley here in central Montana. So, American single malt is what it's going to be. The feds have just released a new standard of identity. That's what it's called. Bourbon is a standard of identity. It has to be made in a certain way to be called bourbon. And they just released one called American Single Malt. So, and that's what we're making. So it's basically similar rules to Scotch in Scotland, but it's American.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it'll be an American thing.
Yeah, American single malt. It's going to be something you hear more and more about. It literally just got approved like 2 weeks ago.
Awesome.
So-
And you're excited about that because that's what direction
and we
you're
knew
headed.
we knew it was coming. It's been in the works for about 5 years now to
Oh,
get
wow.
this American single malt designation. So
And for those of us who don't understand the malting process and the distillery process, can you give us an overview of what it takes? Maybe do it from way back to the moment you're making decisions on what seed to use and how you're growing it and getting it in the bin and all the way to the finished product in a few minutes.
in a few minutes, for sure. So we actually we still grow most of the barley for cores, but we do put in a few acres every year for our own malting and the distillery. And it's actually a Scottish variety, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but it's called Odyssey. Came from Europe. And it's got some special traits to make whiskey. But for single malt whiskey, you want to start with a very low protein barley. So unlike distiller's barley for bourbon, that's a high protein. But for single malt world, it's low. So we actually cut the fertilizer bit back quite a bit, trying to produce and we're sacrificing yield a little bit, but we want that low protein. So we start with a nice low protein barley. We bring it into the malt house, and to make any alcohol, you need sugar. You know, to get like sugar out of a grape, you just give it a nice squeeze. But to get sugar out of grain is trickier, and that's what malting is. You get the grain wet so it sprouts, and it's creating sugar out of the starch it has to fuel itself out the ground until photosynthesis can take over. So what we do is we just get it wet, let it sprout a little bit, and dry it back down. And now it's converted on the inside, and it's more of a packet of sugar that we can now use for brewing or making whiskey. And then we bring the malt into the distillery, grind it up, put it in what's called a mash tun, where we put water on it at a specific temperature. At that temperature, enzymes get activated, and it extracts all the sugar out in the mash tun. So you'll put it in there, and it won't be that sweet, but after about 15 or 20 minutes, it'll be super sweet, and it's called a wort.
That fast?
Yeah, we do mash for a lot longer to try to clear things up in the single malt world. But yeah, it's the enzymes go crazy, and at that point, it's very similar to what brewers do. Then we depart from brewers. Brewers will boil it and put in hops. We'll send it in the single malt world to a fermenter, add yeast. Yeast eat that sugar, make the alcohols and carbon dioxide. So we'll end up with about a 7.5% wash or beer, quote unquote beer. And then through the two distillations, we increase that 7.5% up to about 63.5%. And that's what you put in the oak barrels to age.
Okay, so these oak barrels, do you just buy that, or how do you is it a selection of an oak barrel a thing, or do you just buy any old oak barrel?
So it's very traditional in the single malt world to use ex-bourbon barrels. So bourbon barrels can only be used once, and once they remove it, they can't put anything in there and call it bourbon anymore. That's one of the rules in the standard of identity I talked about earlier. In the single malt world, you can use whatever barrel you choose, and we like a little more mild flavor, not the more of the char flavor that the bourbon has. The single malt, you want it to be a little more mild, and so most bourbon barrels, believe it or not, end up in Scotland.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a symbiotic relationship between
the
bourbon makers and the
exporting
Scotch
these barrels
makers.
to Scotland.
Correct. And so we continue that. We're mostly buying ex-bourbon barrels, emptied bourbon barrels from, of course, Kentucky or Tennessee. But then a variety of other barrels that we can get, sherry barrels and whatnot. Because when it comes time to bottling down the road, you want a variety of barrels that you can pull from to make your different additions.
Oh, okay. So it's not just open the spigot from one barrel and fill her up.
I mean, sometimes if you have a good barrel, everything tastes really nice, you might do a bottling from just this cask. But other times you're taking some from a sherry cask and some from a bourbon cask that might have been Old Fitzgerald bourbon and some that might have been Elijah Craig bourbon.
And who makes that decision for flavor?
Well, you're going to come over and taste, right? No. You just sit down, you take samples, you do your blends, and find something that you really enjoy and really like. And
So being a taste tester is a real job.
I haven't done it yet, to be honest. So
Okay.
Nestor's done it many times
All right,
with their
Nestor's
bottlings,
coming over
but I haven't got that
to get
far
us
yet.
all initiated.
Sure.
I don't drink, so that's why I'm disqualifying myself right now,
Okay.
but I'm very intrigued. Sometimes I wish I did drink just so I can experience these
Well, you can come smell it.
these flavors. That's right.
It smells
that's right.
amazing.
Okay. I will definitely want to come and check out the process. And
So-
how many years you got left to
We-
start?
We've been just over a year, so our oldest barrel's a year and 2 or 3 months old now.
Okay.
So we got a little ways to go, but we're continuing to fill barrels.
Okay, and then, so now you got this product that's cooking, let's call it.
Sure.
Probably the wrong word. Wrong direction here, but it's sitting there now. You've got a couple years to go. You're going to keep making barrels that so you don't run out each year after you start
Correct. Yep.
releasing the product. But do you start marketing it?
When people like this ask us to do interviews, we're doing that, but we're not actively out marketing yet. I mean, we'll get there maybe a year or so before we're actually going to release something. We'll certainly do the more aggressive marketing and start spreading the word. But it's still fun to talk to people and tell them what we're doing and give tours. That's still a really enjoyable thing to do.
Yeah. Do you anticipate having your own label? Are you going to sell it to others?
No, we've been working with some marketing people already and developing our branding and labeling, but it's not nice having a product that we don't get any income for a while, but it is nice having time to develop these things and make sure we get it right.
Yeah.
And
Do you have any like bigger dreams and aspirations for this? Is it something you're like, well, let's see how it goes. We'll do this many barrels. Or do you have like, we're going to do this and we're going for gold? Like, what are your...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a type of person that wants to go get investors and stuff. We'll just let it naturally grow how it grows. However, whatever happens. We'll make the best possible quality product we have and see what happens. So
Yeah. And if it's really good, you'll have scarcity.
yeah,
and value
for sure.
will go up, right?
That's the plan.
Yep.
So I guess maybe something else I should mention is part of all of this goal from the beginning was we need something to help our small farm communities. And when I lived in Scotland, these communities were based around these distilleries, and the distillery helped the community thrive and survive. And we've all heard the word value added, of course, and I don't know, after speaking with Nestor's family and just the value added, I always wanted to do something value added, and I thought it was the malting, but after meeting them and speaking to them, it just clicked that can be something much bigger than even the malting. And I mean, people travel far and wide to go to Kentucky. Why? For the bourbon. And people travel far and wide to go to Napa Valley for the wine down there. And central Montana makes some of the best malt barley in the world. So why can't that be our thing? And
Absolutely.
so,
I'm so sorry I didn't even ask you why you're doing it, because I just assumed that it was for hobby. But this has got a bigger goal and vision than just being. Maybe it started out as a hobby and interest, right? Like you talked about.
Yeah, I kind of float through life and just see an interest and go that way. But this one really, really jumped out at me, and really, it just clicked one day.
Yeah.
And
Well, we're going to be watching to see where it takes it.
I mean, most people don't want competition. I want a dozen more single malt distilleries around the Golden Triangle of Montana. So, and just create a reason for people to come here. So we love it here. We think it's beautiful. We want to show off our area and show everyone what we do on the farms in our small communities. So,
I was asked recently, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? And I'm like, it took me 5 minutes to think, because I've been to a lot of places in the world, and I haven't seen them all. And I know there's beauty pretty much everywhere. And I really like where I live in Fargo, North Dakota. I'm just used to it. And there's good things there too, but man, I couldn't pick another country, or I just kept thinking, man, Montana's it's big sky country, right? And it's so beautiful here. And sure, you can get real remote, but that's kind of the beauty of it too. And no doubt it's similar for the Golden Triangle. I love the name, the Golden Triangle. Why is it called that?
Dad might have to help me. It's Great Falls to Havre to Shelby. If you draw a line to all those towns, the majority of the farming is in that triangle.
Okay.
So, Yeah, that's the bulk of the farmland, the best farmland in the Montana. So.
Yep. So if your competition listening right now, you'd be like, okay, I'm going to market to that area. But
yeah, well, I apologize for any farmers outside that area, but
yeah,
there's wonderful places to farm all over Montana. But that's
right.
If you look on the satellite image of Montana, that's where you'll see the vast majority of the fields and the farms.
Yep.
So.
Yep. It is very much a golden area. They do pretty well there. And we've have a lot of customers there, a lot of farmers that
Absolutely.
have air seeders, of course.
Yep.
Putting that barley in and the other crops. What other crops are grown in your area?
Oh, there's the gamut from the lentils and the chickpeas, safflower, flax, mustards, canolas. Camelina's a new one.
The big ones are, of course, winter wheat.
Winter wheat and malt barley are probably by far the two biggest. So.
Do you find that the rotation matters for quality and what you're after?
The water in our area matters the most.
Yeah.
We're so dry, so the years we get the water, the rotation will help a little bit if we get the water, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
But if we get the water is the big if all the time. So.
Yep. And you're growing barley for cores, you said.
Correct.
Is that something that has provided you to have like a market for, or a way to market yourself or market your product in a way that makes you more viable or provides for your family more? Is that different than just doing winter wheat?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly nice to have a spring crop and a fall crop for our fighting the weeds and whatnot. Yeah, and the malt barley is obviously it's overall a very low cost crop to grow. So we like when we make malt.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen every year that the quality is there for making malt, but
You talked about it requires less fertilizer. You've put less
Yep.
fertilizer to it to get the protein low.
Yep.
Phil, what do you think of all this as you see in this direction? Did you ever envision there'd be malting and distillery in your future?
Not the malting and distilling. That was beyond my radar. We've grown malt barley off and on for several years. Before Ryan came farming, we would sell malt barley to Anheuser-Busch some years when they wanted barley, but not always. They were not a good partner for dryland people. Coors is a very good partner for dryland. And yeah, it's just been a good rotation crop for us.
Okay. How are you? Do you see yourself? Are you more involved with the distillery at all, or are you just watching, seeing how it goes?
Ryan's the expert.
Yep.
I'm on the outskirts watching, but I'm pretty proud of what he's been doing.
Yep. If you're like my dad, I rope him into stuff. So maybe Ryan's roping you into helping him with some of it.
I don't even have to ask. He just mows the lawn at the distillery, and it's very much appreciated.
That's cool. That's cool.
Well,
Very
yeah.
good. And then Nestor, I want to go back to you. What has been your perspective of working with Ryan and what has been your experience working with Ryan? Why do you come from Argentina, and why are you interested to help get involved with this in North America, in America?
Well, I'm here to visit my friends, first of all, and to share this passion for making whiskey.
Nice. So it's a friendship that's developed, and now you guys are collaborating on different continents. That's really neat.
And he's certainly the expert at making the whiskey. I know farming and I know malting, but he's the expert for the whiskey. So his family and his wife has a master's degree in distilling.
Okay.
From Scotland. His son has worked, and I believe Nestor too has worked at distilleries in Scotland. And they have many relationships with distilleries in Scotland. So.
Yeah.
Sounds like you found the right guy.
Well, so the Lord is good, I guess.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily looking for it. It just kind of appeared. And yeah, it's crazy how life is.
Yep. Have you learned anything, Nestor, in this process that has helped you with your operation?
Here.
Yeah. Have you learned anything while being in the United States, working with Ryan on his side of things that you've taken back to Argentina and done something different
Oh, yes.
with your operation?
Oh, yes. The most important thing was making the malt.
Okay. And so did you do that back in Argentina make the malt, or did you buy it
Yeah.
from someone?
No, we produce, we make our malt.
Okay. And so you're learning maybe better ways or different ways to do that?
Well, they actually built a machine down in Argentina. Their son designed and built a machine. I advised him quite a bit. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, they have a similar drum down there
Yeah.
that they make malt with. So
Excellent. So there is some collaboration both
Yep.
ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Excellent. I love it. Ryan, you talked about expanding into a new building. You put up a 50 by 90
correct.
building, and I initially said or thought to myself, oh, okay, you probably got to have a climate-controlled building. It's got to be insulated, and you're going to have this thing right to the nearest degree all the time. And you said something interesting. What did you say?
Yeah, terroir is a word that's used in the fancy craft and wine worlds. So the climate that the barrels age within will affect the flavor of the ultimate spirit. And if we do a climate control system, we're not projecting, or the taste of central Montana is not going to be in that spirit. So same as Scotland. Scotland has a very much humid and more mild climate than Montana, so that makes a certain spirit for Scotland. But with our a little bit drier, but also and hotter, but we are also colder than Scotland. To be honest, we don't know what kind of spirit will come from it, but it certainly will be different than the exact same spirit aged in Scotland. So,
And you use the word the heart of Montana, central Montana.
It'll taste like we will make the best possible product we can in central Montana, and it will taste like the weather, the climate, the environment of central Montana. So
That is so neat, because
Yeah.
I was thinking, climate controlled, everything's controlled, but no, some of the variables actually contribute to the uniqueness of the product.
very much so, yeah. The grains that we use, how those grains were grown, the climate the grains grew within. Every year will be a little bit different. The barley will certainly be different every year, and then the weather that the barrel is within will be different. We're not just setting the barrel outside on the sidewalk. It is in a building, but the building's not climate controlled, and the building lets the environment come in and out. So.
Oh, excellent. That is so cool. Wow, this has been a real treat. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I've learned a lot, and I know you have too. This is something that we got to keep in touch with, or get in touch with you and on track
Absolutely.
with you. And thanks so much, guys, for coming on this podcast and for sharing your story.
Thank you very much. So
Yes.
go Bobcats.
Had to slip that one in there, didn't you?
Sure.
Thank
We'll
you.
get you next year.
We'll get the bison to flash across.
Yeah, we'll get you next year.
in the video. Thank you, Nestor.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for joining us, and keep up the good work. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
It's a
You
good
too.
work to do. Thanks so much for watching this version of the podcast, where we got to learn some really neat things about malting and distillery and really farming in central Montana, and how that can really help drive community change, community improvements, and benefit the community as a whole. So that's a really neat thing. If you are interested to get on a podcast, please reach out to us. We're looking for stories. You all have unique stories to share, and we'd love to hear them and to share them with others. Thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of After Hours Ag. If you really enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and helps us grow and helps us reach more people. And remember, there's still a future in farming, so let's get there together.